2, 1. Welcome to another Britflix.com podcast. My name is Stuart Wright, and today's guest is Neil Thompson of Fat Pictures. They are a development and production company based in London and specialise in project development. They have an active slate, including feature films in the main, but also high-end drama series. They have a reputation for working with new writers and have developed several projects from embryonic stage to fully packaged projects, one of which we're going to talk about, with high profile directors and world-class talent attached. Thrillers of all stripes are their preferred genre, although they do have high concept comedy, an elevated psychological drama, and a contained sci-fi on the current slate. Is that still true?
Yeah.
Good. In addition to all that, they do act as co-producers or partners on international productions, advise on financial strategy to maximise efficiency, as well as utilising current tax credits and sourcing opportunities in equity investment. Welcome to the show, Neil Thompson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stewart. Glad to be here.
Excellent. Now, we're going to be talking about 3 films that have impacted everything in your adult life. But before all that, we're going to have a quick chat about a film you're about to go out to casting on. So do you want to tell us the title and give us a brief synopsis to what it is first?
Absolutely, yeah. So this is one of our funky projects. It's called Idealists.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of a sort of movie in the sort of reunion genre. I mean, I know that's not really a genre, but there's been a whole bunch of movies about a bunch of people who are friends from the past get together again and shit happens.
Yeah.
And I suppose The Big Chill is the really famous one that people remember.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just kind of similar to that in that the millennials haven't seen each other for nearly 20 years. But I was just slightly different in that it takes on a thriller structure.
Okay.
In that we discover stuff about them. It's written by a writer called Mark Haywood, who's brilliant, and you'll hear a lot about him soon. It's actually a sort of from a story by me. I actually sort of wrote a treatment.
Yeah.
And then I was looking for a writer and met up with Mark at the Screenwriters Festival, and he sort of sent me some pages, and it was absolutely brilliant. So we signed him up and got working, brought some producers on board. The Gersh agency in LA are repping it. We're shooting in Cyprus, who have a really good tax credit right now, and doing all the post-production in London. I'll tell you a little bit about it. It's like our group reunite for a funeral in Cyprus. They've not seen each other for nearly 20 years. They're pleased to see each other, heard of each other's up to, but don't seem to be hanging out with each other anymore. The widow of the guru who has died, who's this kind of political figure, says they have to stay as his will might expose them. And so we find out they all committed a terrorist act back in the day, blowing up an oil pipeline in southern Lebanon. And now they've become sort of rich and successful because they're middle-class tossers. And so they kind of argue, fall apart, start messing about with each other. They realize they're being blackmailed. And they eventually kill the local cop who's also after their money. And then they return home thinking they've sorted everything out. And then they get sent photos of them killing said cop by the widow, who is now putting a new cell together, including one of their daughters of one of the group, who are now going to commit terrorist act. And at the end of the film, they see that a pipeline has been blown up, and it's obviously by them. And they're subsidizing it all.
Blimey.
So in the end, they do something good.
When you have a story that you've done a treatment for and you bring a writer in to help you develop into a screenplay, what, in this instance, what were the storytelling challenges for you and the writer in terms of bringing something you've sort of created in the first instance and then hand it over to someone then to develop it into a screenplay?
Yeah, we worked on it a lot. It took a little while. It was quite a complicated screenplay, really. So we had a lot of plates spinning, so we sort of simplified it a bit, made sure that the flashback structure in it really kind of worked solidly, and then a new producer came on board actually called Eugenio Perez, who is a sort of friend of mine, and we worked together before, and he's really good. He gave us some great notes. So even though we thought we had a draft that was really kicking, he actually gave us some fantastic notes and made it much better. But I suppose the director really changed the script a lot. So we brought John Amiel on board to direct it, who was actually the top of our shot list of directors we wanted. So we got the one we wanted, really. And John's sort of knocking on a bit, but he's still directing high-end TV. He's known for his feature films, really, which were amazing. And obviously The Singing Detective, which he did back in the day with Dennis Potter, which is a classic, But he did like the final season of The Walking Dead. He does all the expensive TV stuff. He's the guy you get in because he's a safe pair of hands. And all his high-end TV episodes look amazing. They're always the best ones. And John changed it quite a lot in that he did lots of meetings with us. I mean, he lives in LA, but so we were doing loads and loads of sort of meetings online with scripts, whatever you want to call them, script meetings, etc. And he was really good because he brought that director's POV into it and sort of changed the script slightly. And he was really good at getting this kind of edgier seat, nail-biting kind of scenes, especially the flashback where they all set the bombs. He made that absolutely brilliant, I mean, the way we'd written it, it was okay, but he took it to a different level, In fact, he's hilarious, John. When he did The Singing Detective, right, in Britain with Dennis Potter, and that made him a sort of superstar. So he went out to Hollywood to direct a film called Somersby with Richard Gere, which was a big Hollywood epic.
I remember it, yeah.
And while he was in the office, I can't remember whether he was shooting it. It was in the middle of nowhere, like Kentucky or somewhere. While he was in the office setting it up, he got a call from Stanley Kubrick. And he said to the assistant, it can't be Stanley Kubrick, fuck off, it's someone from London winding me up, So it turned out to be Stanley Kubrick. And Stanley said, look, I was about to go into production, but it's been put back and my sound guy is available. And I know you're shooting, John, so I strongly recommend you use him, because he's the best I've ever worked with, and he's going to be available for all of your shoots. So John gets off the phone and goes, right, let's get this sound guy. He's Stanley's favorite guy, so they did. And about 2 weeks into the shoot, they had to fire him because he was absolute dog shit and he was making a mess of everything. And he was being an absolute cock and upsetting everyone and starting arguments and that. So they fired him. And basically, after the film was finished, John was sitting down with some of the executives from the studio and a bunch of other people from the industry and that. And he said, the weirdest thing happened to me on this movie. He told the story about Stanley. And one of the guys from the studio said, oh, yeah, Stanley does that to all the new directors that come to Hollywood.
Seriously?
He's a total wind-up merchant. He always tries to fuck up your film.
That's unbelievable. I've never heard that before. That's amazing.
Stanley Kubrick. What? He doesn't have to do that. And funnily enough, we're going to talk about him later because one of my films is a Kubrick movie that I've chosen. Yeah,
indeed. And in terms of choosing Cyprus as the location, you said in your opening salvo that the tax credit was good there. So, was the original screenplay set in Cyprus, or was that something you did?
The original screenplay was set in Cyprus.
Okay.
Because it used to be a ferry service across to Lebanon, so it worked geographically for the movie and everything.
Okay.
We then were going to shoot it in Spain, in Canary Islands.
Yeah.
We then were going to shoot it in Greece, close to Athens. And we finally ended up back in Cyprus, where the actual movie's set. So it's weird. It's weird how those things happen.
So when you go out to cast like this, and you've obviously got everything else packaged up, what's the priority then for you in the casting of the movie? Do you have
it's tricky with a film like this because it's about $15 million.
Okay.
So it ain't a cheap movie, and it's an indie movie. I mean, we're talking to studios at the moment, but we haven't signed up for the finance yet, although we've got people interested. So it looks like it's going to go ahead. And obviously the cast is sort of dependent on it being greenlit, to be honest with you. So we are talking to cast. We have some people that want to do it, but we don't have a massive cast budget because it's an ensemble cast. So there's a lot of actors and we need kind of probably 2 marquee names to get us over the line. And it's always tricky with these kind of movies with cast because, if you've got a movie with 2 obvious leads, it's much simpler, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
When you've got a movie like this that, we've also got a very expensive soundtrack on it because we've got loads of hits from, 2003, 2006 period. we got a lot of things that cost a lot of money, a lot of different things that cost a lot of money. So it all adds up and makes a difference. So we haven't actually got a huge cast budget, but we are shooting in Cyprus, in the summer, in the sun, in luxury villas. They can bring their mistresses or secret boyfriends or kids or husbands. So that helps. We'll have a personal chef and all that kind of stuff. So, they'll be well looked after.
Yeah.
But we also need them for quite shoots about 7 weeks.
Okay.
We don't need the actors for 7 weeks, but we need some of them for 4, some of them for 5. So all of that makes it tricky, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So it is a tricky film to finance and cast. But, it's looking really good. Everyone loves the script. The script goes down a storm everywhere we show it. So, yeah, I think we'll be fine, but we are looking for 2 pretty A-list stars, really.
Okay. Well, look, best of luck securing those names and faces.
Thank you very much.
Right, sir. Let us move on to 3 films that have impacted everything in your adult life. The rules are simple. Neil has given me 3 titles for which I will be setting a timer and will be running for 5 minutes. And every time we hear this sound, can you hear that sound at your end?
There it is. Go to the muster deck. The ship's sinking.
For Neil's first choice, it was the second adaptation of Fanny Hurst's 1933 novel of the same name. It features the only Oscar-nominated performances of Susan Kohner and Juanita Moore. The director of this 1959 film is said to have worked gently with his actors. Rather than dictating the way a scene should be played, he would take each actor aside, suggest what he wanted, and ask how he or she felt about it. It was Universal's top-grossing film of the time and Lana Turner's most successful film ever. Her deal for half the profits kept her financially comfortable for the rest of her life, particularly after her 5th husband, Fred May, invested much of the money in real estate. I'm talking about Imitation of I'm talking Imitation of Life, directed by Douglas Sirk.
That's the one.
So tell us, Neil, why does this have impact on you, and what lasting memories does the film have for you?
Okay, so Imitation of Life, of all the Sirk films, really, of which there are about 5 or 6 in that kind of period that he made in the mid to late 50s, that were all monster hits at the time. Like Hitchcock, he had a kind of golden period where he made like 5 amazing movies. Imitation of Life was like the last one, and it's by far my favourite one. And it's I kind of got into it when I was a teenager, really, I think, and have loved it ever since, and always play it on some occasions, and have kind of played it to my daughter and her friends. I've played it when a bunch of people have come over and we're all like a bit hammered after having some food or something, and sitting there and wanting, people say, let's watch a film, so I'll stick this on.
Yeah.
And of course, everyone always goes, oh my God, it's really old. And they sort of moan and whinge for like 5 minutes. And then you come back in the room, it's like deathly silence and everyone's absolutely engrossed in it. And then when you come in at the end, they're all in floods of tears. I guarantee you, this movie will make everyone cry. It's brilliant. I mean, Sirk's films were kind of considered melodramas, was the term given to it back then, and even soap operas, which then became something that happened on TV, sort of thing, it became a kind of genre. And they were really criticized by the critics, but they were massively successful, so it was, audiences absolutely loved them, queued around the block. And as you say, it's the most successful film of that year. Lana Turner's most successful film ever, and she was a superstar, So, they were absolutely huge, but critically slated. No one really liked them. I mean, it's bizarre. And then it wasn't till, I suppose, the French New Wave, the kind of Cannes lot, round about the 60s, all these sort of French intellectuals suddenly started going on about Douglas Sirk and what a brilliant filmmaker he was. And that's when I kind of got interested, really, when I was reading all that. They were obviously into Hitchcock and Billy Wilder and loads of other directors, but Sirk was one of the ones they they kept holding up. And for me, as a kind of, I always liked photography when I was younger, and when I went to film school, I was actually a sort of DOP for a while. So before I started directing and producing and that. So I just loved the way they looked. They were very early exponents of like Technicolor and these glossy sets. Because a lot of these directors that came from Eastern Europe, pre-war, who were escaping the Nazis and all this stuff and depression in Europe in the 30s, a lot of them came from the theater, so they liked sets. That was their thing. And also they saw America with new eyes. So it's really weird. Like most of these really good films from Hollywood, that's how we think America was, because that's how they saw it. And they'd never been to America before.
That's really interesting.
It's really interesting, yeah. So we think of this middle-class Americana of being how these guys saw it, and a lot of the time what they saw was that they had all the 6 fridges and the big houses and all this, but they were miserable as hell. They were all having affairs and hated their kids and, watching telly because it was new then and stuff like that. And that's what all Cirque movies are about. These people are deeply unhappy.
The American dream is not...
It's a kind of the bourgeoisie are kind of falling apart, basically. They've got everything. They're rich and successful and well off and comfortable. But underneath, when you pull back the curtains, they're really falling apart. You can't cope with this life,
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the great thing about Imitation of Life is it features a kind of,
there's our first 5 minutes, sir.
There's our first 5 minutes.
Well done.
Yeah, well, people can read up on it. It's all on the internet and stuff.
But I was interested to read also that it wasn't without its controversy, this film.
Very controversial because of the race element in it.
Because of the casting of a white actress in a mixed race role, wasn't it?
Well, also because the lead character in the movie is an aspiring actress. And she gets together with a homeless black woman who invites them to come and live with her. And she essentially becomes her maid.
Okay.
So, and the 2 kids who love each other and play together all the time, one's quite light-skinned, so she tries to pass off as white.
Okay.
Much to the distraught of her mother. And then that's why the end of the film is so moving, because Mahalia Jackson, the gospel singer at the end, is doing the music at the end.
Yeah.
And the daughter finally comes back after she's worked in all these clubs as a stripper and that, and to kind of her mum's funeral, which is epic. What they've realized is that the mother, this black lady, is kind of a massive pillar of the community. So her funeral is epic with white horses and coaches and hundreds of people there. And they never knew because they never thought of knowing, really. And the daughter fights her way through the crowds to declare her undying love for her mother and to ask for forgiveness. It's really moving. It's absolutely brilliant.
For your second choice, this controversial 1971 film...
Controversial again.
...was adapted from the novel of the same name again and was unavailable in the UK from 1973 to 2000. British video shops in the 80s got so many requests from customers that some had a sign up saying, no, we don't have this film. The director's first cut ran to almost 4 hours before hiring several assistant editors who almost halved the runtime. I'm talking about Clockwork Orange, directed by Stanley Kubrick. So tell us, how does this have an impact on you, and what are your fond memories of it?
Well, Clockwork Orange is just one of these movies, and the book by Anthony Burgess. The book was massive. And obviously, Kubrick came on board to do the film, which made it even better. And, well, I'm old enough to have seen it when it first came out.
Okay.
And I'm just checking my notes here. So I saw it in, I think it was either Acton Broadway or Ealing Broadway. It was in West London, I can't remember.
Yeah.
And during the movie, there was fights. The guy got chained. And then outside, when we were all waiting for the bus, there was a massive fight at the bus stop, which spread onto a bus and terrified people. And it was crazy. I mean, it was just, this movie it exploded onto the streets, and young people just adored it. But it made them want to fight. So instead of seeing the end of the movie, which is about which is about trying to sort of stop people being crazy and thuggish sort of thing. They just loved the first half of the movie and kind of copied it, and it was, I mean, that's why Kubrick pulled it.
Yeah. It wasn't
because it wasn't actually banned in the UK. It was banned in loads of countries, but the UK didn't ban it. He pulled it.
Yeah.
Because he was so terrified of what was going on.
I mean, given you were there, then why did UK audiences react the way they did, and nowhere else in the world did?
Well, I think they did everywhere. They did in a lot of places. I mean,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty crazy. I mean, I remember a few years later, one of my mates managed to sort of force me or press gang me into taking these kids from the Britwell estate in Slough down to the coast, like Littlehampton, I think it was, or somewhere like that. And these were proper little tearaways, they were like uncontrollable. Right. And, they were messing about at the seaside or whatever. And then they suddenly sort of came running back. We were sort of by the coach having a sandwich or whatever. They came running back, chased by these droogs, all dressed in Clockwork Orange gear.
No way.
Who I'd found out later were from the East End of London. And we had to get our kids on the coach, get the coach out of the car park and like bugger off. And we were getting like rocks thrown at the coach and everything. I mean, it's terrifying.
The good old days, eh, Neil?
Yeah, I mean, so that was still going on. That was years later. But, it was like it really did kind of land. Well, that book did too. I mean, there's been, let me look at my notes again. I mean, I remember like my older brother having the book. And, I mean, he's a reader, but, I remember him saying, everyone passed this book around at school, even kids that never read books.
Yeah.
So it was like Train Spotted, Football Factory, Generation Ecstasy, all these books that people who read books don't read, but they become like huge books. And then they make a movie out of it, and they usually become huge movies.
Yeah.
Although in the case of the rave scene, there wasn't really a massive movie that broke through from the rave scene sort of thing. But Football Factory was certainly a massive football hooligan movie, and Trainspotting was a massive drug movie, I mean, it is interesting how these things can affect youth culture in the most astonishing ways,
But I mean, I remember Britain was quite a violent society from what I can understand. I mean, I remember talking to the first manager of The Cure.
In the 70s, it really was, yeah.
Yeah, and he was saying that he was the other end. He was the Essex end of the Central Line from Acton.
Yeah. And
he was saying that when you got on at Leytonstone, you took your life into your own hands, depending on who was already on the train when you got on.
It's true. Yeah. It was all like that. If you got the tube somewhere the other side of London or not near where you lived, you had to sort of dodge in and out of shops and that to avoid marauding gangs that would just beat the crap out of you because you don't come from around there. Yeah. In fact, when I was at film school, I actually did one of the exercises we had to do was to do a montage to a song, and I chose
finish your thought.
I chose what's so funny about Peace, Love and Understanding by Elvis Costello. And I cut up and slowed down and did all the violence from Clockwork Orange. And when we showed that, it shocked the film students and the tutor. So it still had the power to shock.
Yeah.
Even then, people who were blew people's heads off that this was from a movie from that long ago.
I think because it's set in a dystopia, and obviously the film is a 70s version of dystopia.
That's what's so clever about it. It doesn't date.
No, it has.
And they speak this kind of Russian language, and they listen to Beethoven and that. Yeah. It's so cleverly put together that it could be now, really,
Right, sir. For your final choice, we have another novel adaptation, but the only one where the author wrote the screenplay. The other two, somebody else did.
Which is interesting, yeah.
Seth Rogen, Ryan Reynolds, Brad Pitt, and John Hamm were all considered for the role of Nick. That would eventually be played by Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
He'd been cast, and I didn't notice this, but I guess it must be true. He'd been cast in Batman and Superman, which explains why, when you watch this movie, his weight fluctuates between buff and just average build. Which, it must have been a pain in the ass for continuity. Opposite Ben is Rosamund Pike. She said she drew her inspiration for the role of Amy from Nicole Kidman's performance in To Die For and Sharon Stone in Basic Instinct. In a weird twist of fate, 2015's Oscars, she would be up against her own producer of this movie, Reese Witherspoon, who'd got the book rights to this film.
Yeah, she was going to do it originally.
She was, yeah. And they were both nominated for Best Actor, which they lost to Julianne Moore for her performance in Still Alice. I'm talking about 2014's Gone Girl, directed by David Fincher. So tell me, why does this have such an impact on you, and what are its fond memories?
I've always loved really good psychological thrillers.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously I love all the old ones, the classic. But it's interesting in that Gone Girl is a really good example of a modern one. I mean, there's quite a few. Mm-hmm. They do them quite regularly now. But Gone Girl is a prime example of what you'd call a film noir, or neo-noir, as they're called now.
Indeed.
And, featuring what the French call a femme fatale. So a kind of lead female character who is bad.
Yeah.
And in the olden days, they would always get their comeuppance. So at the end of the film, they'd either die or, go to jail for life or whatever, or get ostracized and blah, blah, blah. In the modern film noir, they get away with it, which is great. And Gone Girl's a really good example of a sort of femme fatale that's supposedly gone missing and might have been murdered. And as it turns out, has orchestrated absolutely everything.
Yeah.
And has kind of done it all to snare her. Well, she's a kind of psychopath, really, but she's done it all to sort of snare her idiot husband, as you said, beautifully played by Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
Who I know Fincher cast because he has those. Not that he's an idiot, but he's good at playing that kind of character, who hasn't got a fucking clue what's going on right behind his back, So it's obviously David Fincher. David Fincher's such a great director. I mean, I come from music videos, so does Fincher. I've followed his career right from the off. He's never put a foot wrong. He's always been absolutely brilliant. David is a classy director. He really is. When you look at the different sort of things he's done, from sort of The Social Network, Seven, he even did, House of Cards. He set up the look for that and was the original director. And, that looks fantastic.
Mindhunter is quite special as well.
Oh, Mindhunter's great. Yeah. He actually brought in a director to do that. He sort of execed it, Fincher. But like you said with Gone Girl, so Gillian Flynn's written the book, and so the film was commissioned on the manuscript, which is quite often of a book these days, so before the books even come out.
Yeah.
And Fincher was then brought on for the film before the book too. So the studio kind of helped with the publicity for the book. And Fincher, like you say, instead of bringing in a screenwriter, which they always do, decided to work with her as the author of the book, and she says he was hugely influential. He taught her how to write screenplays, really.
Yeah,
because she's never written one before.
She's done more since, hasn't she?
Yeah, so they kind of worked hand in glove. They completely worked together. And Fincher made her write and write like he does. He's known for doing like 75 takes. He probably made her do 150 drafts.
Is it? I think it's David Fincher who, one of his processes is to get the screenwriter to read the screenplay to him.
Yeah,
as a kind of first sort of go at it, and you're like,
he likes to read. He likes to read screenplays out loud a lot. He does it all the time.
Okay. Yes, I thought that was true.
Which is a smart thing to do. I mean, that's what you do, because they're words on a page.
Yeah.
But they're going to have to be acted. So one of the best things we all do is try and put the best cast you can together. Sometimes even with a casting director, and have a good reading of a script with a small invited audience and see how it plays. It tells you everything. It really does. It tells you what lands, what doesn't. It's great for the writer, Oops.
Perfect time again. Perfect timing. Anything else you want to say about Gone Girl?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that was interesting that he decided to stay with the writer, and that was how it developed. And it took a long time. I mean, Rosamund Pike says a great thing about David Fincher, in that scene where she has to kill the old boyfriend, and it's full of blood, and it's in a bedroom, and it's a difficult scene for her to do. She has to give it plenty of like method welly, And she was saying to Fincher, how do I keep up this level of performance? It's not going to be easy. And he said, look, don't worry. And he made the set so it completely felt came apart. So the bed was on wheels and would roll out. The wall would come down. The costume was there ready with the blood to put straight on her. The blood that was on her was already. So like 5 minutes later, bang, she's back in there doing the scene again. And she said it was brilliant to have a director that takes that much care to look after your performance, you know. And that's Fincher for you. He's technically brilliant. He's a classy director. And I just think he's one of the modern greats. He'll go down in history, you know.
Well, look, that brings us to the end of the podcast.
Thank you very much, Stuart.
I was going to say, it just gives me to say thank you very much for giving us your time on the podcast.
Absolutely. It's been an absolute pleasure, sir.
Do remember to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, follow on Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts for more movies that impacted your life. And if you want to, I'd love to know what your favourite movies are, what your fondest movie memories are. So please share your favourite movies that impacted your life on Twitter. Look for @LeightonRocks. And you can always leave me a review, 5-star preferably. And in your review, tell us which 3 films impacted your life. Best ones get read out on the podcast.
Hello, travellers. Do you enjoy dark fantasy? Fancy some duets? Or maybe you're just in search of a long-form D&D campaign. Something to drown in when you're bored. Aimer Ace and Niles Wilhelm here on behalf of the Wayward Inquisition to let you know that they are your destination. Filled to the brim with all the glorious stories that you've been looking for, the Wayward Inquisition brings content that will have you wondering just what sorcery do these jesters possess. Give them a try. It's no skin off your bone. Unless Tyrell's involved, then it might be, but either way, go give them a listen. I promise you won't regret it.